Hey, what's good, everybody? Thanks for hopping in the car with Christian Addiction Recovery, the channel where like-minded individuals that face similar struggles can come so that we can learn and discuss new ways to live the best life possible and overall become the best versions of ourselves. All right, before I get into it today, I just want to clarify this. I don't say this on every video, but I am no therapist. I am no psychologist, all right? And although I have studied at YouTube University, you know what I'm talking about, if you're struggling with addiction or depression, I highly recommend you go find a therapist. And if you are in therapy and it's not working out for you, get a different therapist, all right? Okay, so in my last two videos, we talked about the first two steps in a three-step process that I have put together based on some counseling that my mother did and experiences in my own life. And I think these are three good steps that can help you start getting to a place of healing from childhood trauma or any trauma, really. Okay, and the first step in this process is to identify. This is very similar to what is referred to in AA and any of the other 12-step programs as inventory, okay? And now it's really important when you do this inventory or this identifying, you're gonna go inside and you're going to determine every single thing that has ever wronged you or how you have ever wronged other people, okay? And this can take 3-4 days, 3-4 weeks, it really doesn't matter. And this is something that can always go on, because the more that you get to a place of healing and the more you get to a place of forgiveness for those things that have happened to you, the more you're gonna realize that, hey, there's some other areas that I need to work on, right? But to me, the recognize process is to actually go through all those things that you've identified and recognize how those wrongs that you have done to other people and how you've wronged yourself actually were impacted by the trauma that you've had in your life or the wrongs that have happened to you. Now, again, I talked about this in the second video, but this is not blaming, okay? We are not saying, oh, I did all this stuff because this, right? That's not what we're doing, okay? We're recognizing that because this thing happened to me, it hurt me, and my hurt self made decisions that hurt other people and maybe even caused them trauma, right? So again, we're not blaming. We're not going to blame the person that did anything to us. We're just going to recognize that that trauma had an impact on our other decisions. Okay, and guys, I'm about to get into the third subject, which is reconcile and forgiveness, all right? But before I do, blaming and not blaming others really is a big part in being able to find forgiveness for yourself and for others. And real quick, I wanted to go to a scripture. We've got Luke 6:37. It says, "Judge not, and you shall not be judged. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Hey guys, I know that not everybody that's going to watch this is a Christian, but regardless if you're a Christian or not, this is really good instruction for life, okay? It's so amazing, but not very profound, that when you're having a good relationship with God and you're working on your good relationship with God, it goes hand in hand with having good mental health. Imagine that this book would be our instruction manual on how to have a good life. Go figure, right? So I think that scripture is a good segue in between what I was talking about with not blaming other people, because I really feel like blame is a type of unforgiveness. When we blame other people, that's kind of like us saying, hey God, I know that you're really trying to raise me and teach me good because I'm your kid, but I don't like the way it's going. Because God allows our troubles and our trials and our tribulations to come into our life to mold us into the magnificent creations that He has called us to be. And for me, I had to remove social media out of my life because it was real easy to, even when I'm seeing other people's nice lives, I'm like, it really led me to blame someone else really quick. Well, if this didn't happen, then I would have, been able to be there and stuff like that. So me personally, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but you should do this, but get off of social media, at least for a time. Take a dopamine break and let your brain just revive itself, because that social media is draining to your mental health. Okay, on to reconciling and to forgiving, right? And it's all intertwined, guys. It's all the same thing. Like not blaming others, not judging others, forgive so that you can be forgiven. It's very intertwined. So as I spoke about in the last two videos, my mom had gone to a Christian counselor to ask him how she could maybe start healing from some of her past. And he had told her these 3 steps, right? And that's what I've kind of talked about. And the guy didn't call these 3 steps what I'm calling them, but as my mom was telling me this story, I was able to recognize that this is the same thing that I did in my process, just a little bit different way, okay? And he had told her to identify, write all the things down, right? Recognize. So when you're doing the recognizing, you're going through all of the things that you've identified of who's hurt you, how you've hurt other people. And when you recognize, you can kind of trace those things back to some traumas or some in particular instances. And those are the ones that it is most important to leave in the past. Obviously, we need to leave everything in the past, right? But we got to get down to the root problem. And when we get down to the root problem, okay, some of these situations may have you, as a matter of fact, it'd probably be a good idea to write a letter to the person. You don't ever have to send it, but just write a letter telling them something like this. And again, this is not a template or anything like that. Use your own words. But if I was going to try to forgive someone that did that to me, I might say something like, look, hey, I know that when you did this to me and you hurt me and you traumatized me, I know that you did this because you were hurt. I know that there's something inside of you that needs fixing. But I can't worry about that anymore, and I can't worry about how what you did to me affected me anymore. I'm leaving it in the past. And so I forgive you. And though I may not forget, when this thought comes into my mind, I will hold no bitterness from this experience. Okay? And again, if someone's done something horrific to you, they most likely are dealing with some things. So it may not be the best to actually send this letter to them. Pray for them and pray for God to touch them. When you write the letter out, it's a visualization of you forgiving them. And it's going to be something that's going to be in your memory, right? And then the next step, after you have these letters written out and you have all these wrongs that have harmed you written out, now we're going to go burn them, okay? Now the counselor had told my mom that once she had all these things taken care of and written out and all the letters, to burn them. And then that way she would have a visualization of those things being demolished, those pains being incinerated, them being no more, right? And that was a huge step for her to really leave those things in the past, right? We're trying to move forward, and we cannot move forward if we have unforgiveness in our heart. We have to forgive. And one of the things that was very similar in my mom's story and my story is that when I was at Honey Lake Clinic, the rehabilitation center I went to, we did something called the Father's Love Letter. And that's where we literally wrote a letter from Satan to ourselves. And when we did that, that was like us identifying. We were able to identify all the ways that Satan comes after us and makes jabs and says you're not good enough and look what you did and all of these things, right? And then we did the same thing. We prayed about it, and we prayed for God to show us the truth of who we are, right? And then we went out, and that would be kind of like the recognizing, because then you're recognizing, you're saying, the truth is that I'm not all of those things, that I've done those things, but they were a causation of some turmoil that was going on inside. So that recognizing was the same as us going to the Bible and recognizing some truths about who we are. The third step in that process as well was burning the letters, right? And when I burned my letter, I immediately was overwhelmed with the Spirit of God. And I literally wept for like 30 minutes writing a letter from God to myself. And I just had a beautiful realization of the creation that I was and that God had called me to be. Okay. I'll also put a link to that video that I talk about that a little bit more, the Father's Love Letter, down below as well in the description. But my transformation was amazing. Okay. You would look back at the life that I had before this experience. You would think that I had everything that I would need to be happy. I was in my kids' lives. I had a house with a wife, dogs, car, job, everything, right? But I was spiritually dead almost inside because I could not find this forgiveness for others. I could not let it go. And so I dwelt in the past. And now you would look at my life and say, well, your wife left you, your dog left you, you haven't seen your kids in a couple years, and all of that stuff is true, right? And I know that God's going to restore that to me. I know God's going to bring my kids back into my life and restore me to have a wife and dogs and I got the dog already, and everything. I know that now, right? But if you would look at my life now and you look at my life before, you would be like, well, you don't really got it together right now. But I found contentment and peace. And there's nothing that I would take to give that away. I found something truly special in this process, guys. And it wasn't just this process. It's about all the things that we're going to talk about on this channel. Just all of these aspects of mental health. And we're going to dive in. I'm going to do my best to impart the wisdom and understanding that I've received to you. Because I want you too to be able to know what an amazing creation that God has made in you. And what a wonderful calling that you have on your life. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. If you're listening to this, God has called you. But it's so important if you're going to move towards this wonderful existence and this beautiful reality that I call my own now. You have to find forgiveness. Okay? Before I was just overwhelmed with bitterness, and I was not even like, you would look at me and you wouldn't even think that I was like an unhappy guy, because on the outside, you know, I was getting messed up all the time. And when I wasn't getting messed up, you know, I was down. And so I just was in this cycle of just not good and not what I wanted, right? God knew the desires of my heart. He knew that this is what I wanted, that I didn't want all that other stuff I was chasing, right? And so that bitterness ate me up inside and took me to a place that was so dark that I wish I was dead, right? And I had everything that I could want, and I still kind of wished I was dead. And that was not because of my ex-wife, or that was not because of my kids. That was not because of anything. They're wonderful people, okay? I had to fix myself to get to this place. And where I had to start was forgiveness, true forgiveness. And a part of that forgiveness is accepting your forgiveness from God, realizing that He's already forgiven you. He's accepted you just the way you are. He knew every choice that you were going to make along the way, all the people that you were going to hurt, and all the pain that you were going to feel inside, and all the shame that you may feel right now. And He accepts that. He accepts you. He forgives you. If you've never had that forgiveness, then you just should ask God, God, show me your forgiveness in my life. And when God's Spirit comes in you, He can help assist you in forgiving these other people. But true forgiveness can be many parts, but 3 of the parts that are so important are forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and accepting forgiveness from God. And this is another part, and tell me in the comment section if you think I'm wrong, but I really think that when we learn how to suffer, and I'll talk about that in another video, but I did some research and some studying, and I don't think that suffering means being in pain and all of that, at least not in the Bible. I think it means toleration. I think that tolerating something that might irk our flesh. When you think about it, God suffers through all of our sin. He tolerates it all. And He tolerates us because He's forgiven us, right? So when we start living in a place of true forgiveness and true acceptance, then we too are going to learn how to suffer well and to be able to tolerate the world around us, even if it irks our flesh, right? And the more that we can do that, and the more that we can suffer well and be in a place of acceptance, the greater life is going to get. The less that you want all these things, the greater it's going to feel just to be alive. I don't know how to describe it, guys, but it's true. It is so true, and my life has been completely transformed. And when you look in the Bible, guys, you got to look at Paul. And Paul suffered well, and he was so happy. He was kind of like how I feel these days, where he just said, I'm content with nothing. I'm content with everything. I'm content no matter where I'm at. God has taught me to be content. And he talks often about rejoicing in his sufferings. And I know it's not easy to get to this place of being able to suffer well. And it's not really easy to forgive these people that have hurt you. Really none of the things in mental health are easy. They're all simple. Like when you think about forgiving someone, oh, that's easy, right? But to actually practice these things, it's hard. And here's something that might help you in your forgiveness, guys. It's hard to forgive those people that hurt you. But if you can remember this scripture when you're going through this process, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers and rulers of darkness. And what God in our manual is telling us is that hurt people, okay? He's saying that you got to remember that this person that hurt you was tormented, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. And you might say, well, there's a whole lot of people out there that sure are hurting people. Yeah, because there's a whole lot of people out there that are tormented by unforgiveness. So guys, I really hope that this 3-step process helped. Remember, identify, recognize, and reconcile. I guess you could say to help you remember it. I don't know if that would help you remember it. But forgiveness is a topic that is going to take a lot of explanation. There's so many different depths to it, but this is just a touch on it, and we'll go into further depth in another video. Hey, I really appreciate you sticking around till the end of the video. If you haven't yet, smash that like. All right. Hey, and if it still says subscribe right there and it's red, go ahead and click that. Just click it. Because I'm a new channel, I'm not going to be popping back up in your feed. And if you enjoyed this information a little, and I guess you do if you're still listening to my voice, then go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. All right. I love y'all. Peace.